Good morning, friends. Today we are going to learn about the GnRH physiology. As you all know about the hypothalamus pituitary ovarian axis, and we are going to revise it because then we will subsequently learn about the different IVF stimulation protocols. So let's revise about the GnRH physiology. As you all know, the GnRH, that is a gonadotropin releasing hormone, it is secreted by the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is situated above the optic chiasma and below the third ventricle, and it forms the base of the diencephalon. Hypothalamus has a various peptidergic neural cells, means it has both neurons as well as the endocrine cells. And these neurons and the endocrine cells, they respond to the various neurotransmitters as well as to the various hormones. And this hypothalamus, this whole system, it is known as the neurosecretion. Now, there are various releasing hormones from the hypothalamus, and out of all these hormones, in view of the reproductive endocrinology, the most important one is the GnRH. Now, the GnRH, another one is GHRH, that is the growth hormone. CRH is a corticotropin releasing hormone and thyrotropin releasing hormone. Now, these releasing hormones, they travel to the anterior pituitary via hypophyseal portal circulation, and GnRH acts on the anterior pituitary, and anterior pituitary secretes two gonadotropins, and these two gonadotropins are the FSH and the LH. Now, this FSH and LH both will act on the ovary. The last endocrinal organ in the HPO axis is the ovary. So this is the hypothalamus, this is the pituitary and the ovary. Now, the release of these hormones, it is controlled by the various feedback mechanisms. And these feedback mechanisms, if we divide, either maybe the long loop, either maybe the short loop or a ultra short loop. The long loop means the circulating level of the androgen and the estrogen, they will give signal to the hypothalamus. In the short loop, the pituitary hormones give signal to the hypothalamus, and in the ultra short loop, there are some chemicals or the hormones which are secreted by the hypothalamus give signal to the hypothalamus itself to control the release or inhibit the release of these releasing hormones. Now, this GnRH, it is a decapeptide which is secreted by the arcuate nucleus in the hypothalamus. And if we see the chromosome which is responsible for the GnRH, that is chromosome is situated on the 8p, and this GnRH works or acts through the receptors, and the receptor through which it works, it is encoded by the chromosome 4q. Now, the most important thing in a GnRH physiology, it is a pulsatile secretion of the GnRH, and it is secreted in a pulsatile manner in a hypophyseal portal system. Now, understand this very carefully. Why we need pulsatile secretion? Because whenever there is a pulsatile release of a GnRH, it is responsible for the puberty. This pulsatile release of the GnRH is responsible for the pituitary gonadotropins to release, that is the FSH and LH. And if there is a constant secretion of the GnRH, then there is a pituitary suppression of the FSH and LH release. That's why we need pulsatile release of GnRH, so that pituitary will have a effective release of the FSH and the LH gonadotropins from the anterior pituitary. Now, the half-life of the GnRH is very short. It is just 2 to 4 minutes. So, if we see the pulse frequency in an early follicular phase, that is 1 in 90 minutes, and it increases to late follicular phase in 1 in 60 to 70 minutes. So lower pulse frequency favors FSH, higher pulse frequency favors LH. Because if you see, this is the single releasing hormone, that is a GnRH, which is responsible for the FSH release as well as the LH release from the anterior pituitary. It is a single neuropeptide which is responsible for the release of the two gonadotropins. So, which one to release in which phase depends on the pulse frequency as well as the amplitude. Now, what happens in a follicular phase? There is a frequent pulse but lower amplitude. Okay, what happens in a late follicular phase? Increase frequency, increase amplitude, which favors LH surge. So once there is a LH surge, there is a ovulation. Now what happens in a late luteal phase? There is a decreased frequency, favors increased FSH, which is responsible for the next cycle folliculogenesis. So if you see the release of the GnRH, how it happens in a pulsatile manner, how it affects the pituitary gonadotropins release. Now in subsequently, we will see about the pituitary gonadotropins, how the pituitary gonadotropin release affects the release of the hypothalamic GnRH